Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Economics Simplified with Miss Ellen. I wish you a happy new year and I promise to make this year special with good content on different economic topics. If this is your first time watching my video, please subscribe to my channel, you like, you share, and remember to leave a comment below. Today, teaching on price theory, and we have demand. Price theory, that is demand. By the end of this video, I'm going to tell you what demand is and then explain certain concepts under demand. So let's begin. Let's define what demand is. It is the quantities of goods and services, that is commodities, consumers are willing and able to buy at various prices within a period of time. That is the definition for demand. Now, to the layman, they understand demand to be one's desire or one's wants. But then demand goes beyond your desire or your wants. That is your willingness and then your ableness to purchase a commodity within a given period of time. That is what demand. Now, I want my viewers or my students to know that when we talk about demand, we are referring to consumers and not producers or suppliers. It is consumers who demand for goods and services. So it means that if you want something, it goes beyond you desiring for the thing, but then it is based on your abilities and then your capabilities or your willingness or your ableness to have that. That is what we term as demand. Now we look at certain concepts under demand. The first is demand schedule. So let's define what demand schedule is. It is the tabular representation between the various prices and quantities demanded of a commodity over a given period of time. So the underlining word here is a tabular representation. So that is what a table which is representing various prices of goods and services with their quantities demanded. Now we have here that is, it is a table showing the relationship between the various prices and quantities demanded of a good over a given period of time. That is another definition for demand schedule. Now let's look at types of demand schedule. Types of demand schedule. Now we have two types of demand schedule. We have that of the individual demand schedule and we have the market demand schedule. So let's explain what is meant by the individual demand schedule. It is a table showing the relationship between various prices and quantity demanded of a commodity by an individual over a given period of time. So we have here, that is an example of a demand schedule, but then this time it is an example of an individual demand schedule. So you realize that the first column we have the various prices, and then the second column we have quantity demanded. So this is an example of an individual demand schedule. Then we look at that of the market demand schedule. It is a table showing the various prices and quantities demanded of a commodity by the whole market over a given period of time. So you realize that the main difference between these two is that with the individual demand schedule, we're looking at the individual demand schedule of, let's say, Amma or Kofi or Adwa or Abigail. That is a single person's demand schedule. But then with that of the market demand schedule, we are looking at various individuals who have come together and then we are having what? A market demand schedule. Now let me take you through the table. Realize that we have various prices on the first column. Then the second column, we have an individual demand schedule of that of Eunice. Then the third column, we have that of Bernice, we have Edu, and then to get your total market demand, that will be the summation or the addition of these various demand schedule, and that will give you the total market demand schedule. Then we look at another concept which is known as demand curve. Demand curve. It is a graphical representation. In other words, it is a graph showing the relationship between the various prices and quantities demanded of a commodity over a given period of time. So the underlining word here will be a graph, or as I said, the graphical representation of various prices with their quantity demanded. Now, the demand curve is, as I said, a graphical representation of the various demand schedule. So let me draw the demand curve for you. We have the vertical axis, we have the horizontal axis. Now, the mathematics will call this vertical axis and then that of the horizontal axis. But in economics, we will call the vertical line as the price line. Now, the PX represents price, and that of the horizontal, we call it quantity. So since we are talking about demand, this will be the quantity demand line. Always make sure that when you are drawing your demand curve, you label it. The labeling is very important. Now, since we are dealing with economics, which also involves assumptions, let's assume that we have the price of a commodity to be, let's say, 50 cedi. Then the quantity demanded of that commodity at, let's say, 4 units. Then, assuming the price of the commodity decreases to, let's say, 30 cedi, and then that of the quantity demanded increases to, say, 8 units. Now, let's use this raw data to plot a demand curve, and let's see how the curve is going to go. So on our graph, we have the 0-degree man here. Then the prices, the two prices, we have 50 and that of 30. So from 0, it means the next will be 30. Then let's assume we have 50 here. Then that of the quantity, we have 4 and then 8. So 4 will be here. And then let's assume we have our 8 here. One interesting aspect of economics is the assumption. You can assume anything you want. Then we plot it. So we have 50 is to 4. So that is our first point. And then 30 is to 8. Our second point. Then we draw a line to pass through the 2 points that we have. Then we label the side D, that is the demand. Now, this is how the demand curve looks like. So you realize that the demand curve is a downward sloping curve. That is, it is a curve that moves downward from the left side to the right side. So that is one characteristic of the demand curve. It slopes downward. In other words, it is a negative or a negatively sloped curve. That is why we refer to it as the graphical representation of various prices. The prices are the 50 and then 30. So various prices and then quantity demanded of the commodity in terms of the 4 and then 8 units. So this is how the demand curves looks like. Then another concept, we look at the law of demand. This is one of the laws we have in economics, the law of demand. Now let's state the law of demand. The law of demand states that all other things being equal, the higher the price of a commodity, the lower the quantity demanded. And the lower the price of the commodity, the higher the quantity demanded. So that is the law of demand. Whenever you are asked to state the law of demand, please don't forget this phrase. That is all other things being equal. If you state the law and then you don't bring this phrase, it is not called a law of demand. So that is what the law of demand. You should always have it in mind. Now we take the last function, the last concept, which is demand function. It is a mathematical representation showing the relationship between price and quantity demanded of a commodity. So the underlining word here is mathematical representation or expression. Now let's have an example of a demand function. So that is an example of a demand function you see right here. Now let's define these variables. The QD represent the quantity demanded of the commodity. Then we have A, which stands alone. It's known as a constant variable or an independent variable. Then we have that of B, which shows the slope of the demand curve. And we have P, which is the price. Now I realize that there is a negative attached to the B. The negative means the negative slope of the demand curve, as I explained earlier. So that is the demand function you see right there. Now, in all the concepts I've explained, you realize that there is certain differences and then similarities. For example, when we take that of the demand schedule, what you should note is that it is a tabular representation. Then with that of the demand function, it is a mathematical expression. And then when you take that of the demand curve, it is a graphical representation. So that is the difference between the concept I have just explained. If you've watched up to this time and then you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to the channel, you like, you share, and remember to leave a comment. Thanks so much.